recording. Hello. Sibilance. Okay, excellent. Hi. My name is Stephen Moore, and I am very happy to welcome you to Elastic Arts. Any first-time Elastic Arts people here? Cool. All right. Excellent. Awesome. Welcome. If you don't know Elastic Arts, it's a great place to see music and to hear music, see people making music. It's a great place for shows and things, and you should check it out. There is a clipboard at the back of the room where you can put down your email address, and they will send you one lovely and only one email a week with a rundown of what's happening, which is, I find useful. So you may too. This is the second evening in a series of artist talks, demonstrations, and evenings talking about multi-channel music called Making Multi-Channel Music. And it features the speaker system that's on the ceiling above you, which we refer to as the CLEAT system. CLEAT is an acronym. It stands for the Chicago Laboratory for Electroacoustic Theater. And we do a concert here at Elastic every month. But more importantly, and more germane to tonight's conversation, we hold this system here within Elastic as a community resource and a way for making music and allowing folks like you to come in and use the system and make these sounds. So part of what we're trying to do with this series is to give you some insight into how artists have used the system, maybe inspire you to have ideas of your own about how you might want to use the system. And so to that end, as we reach the end of the evening, myself and co-curator for the series, Sam Clapp, who's waving at me right now, yeah, there he is, we'll be hanging around, and we're more than happy to help you plug into the system if you brought your laptop tonight, or to direct you towards the resources that would make that available to you in the future. So as you're listening to Dorothy's talk tonight, and you're having ideas, know that it is something that you can do and that we encourage you to do and to have it happen. So that's all I want to say about it, and the rest of the much more interesting stuff is going to be said by Dorothy Carlos. Help me welcome her.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for coming. Like Stefan mentioned, we'll have time at the end for people to try. And if you brought your instrument, you can also hook up to my system that's already set up. And if you didn't bring your instrument and you still want to try things, maybe like clap or snap or sing or something, then we can do that too, just so you can see how it feels to do something on the system. My name is Dorothy Carlos. A little bit of background about me. I was trained in classical music. I play the cello. And I just finished my master's in sound at the Art Institute of Chicago. And I'd say like my main two facets of expression are improvisation and also multi-channel sound installation and multi-channel improv, like improving on a multi-channel system. So the main two sections of this talk will be, I'll start with talking about a sound installation that I did at the Lincoln Park Conservatory that I rearranged for this system, and then I'll just talk a little bit about how I go from, usually I use like a two input system, so I'll have my instrument and then my voice, but we can also talk about just going from mono to 16 channels. It should be a lot of fun, and thank you again everyone for coming, and thank you Stefan and Sam and Matt, who's also involved with the CLEAT system, for having me and opening up the space. So another thing to note is that this system is very open to pretty much anyone who wants to use it. There are times on Tuesdays and Fridays, I believe, every week, and you can just email Elastic Arts and they'll set up a time for you to come. So it's pretty open. Yeah. So the main software that I'll be talking about today is Ableton and Max MSP. Is anyone familiar with that? Yeah? Cool. Yeah, those aren't the only DAWs that you can use to hook up to the system. Yeah. Oh, is this not a good?
This is RF, it's an application.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah, and yeah, this is the CLEAT website. So yeah, we have all kinds of. Oh shoot. Maybe is this still gonna work? Okay.
No.
It's okay. But yeah, this website is like good to note. Under resources, if you are a Max user, they have a lot of useful starter patches that you can use. Yeah, another resource that's helpful for me is audio routes in Ableton. And so you have a variety of panners and audio routing things that you can do. Yeah, so I can just send those to you after if you're interested. But yeah, so basically how the 16-channel system works is you have 16 speakers that you can individually send things to. They're numbered off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, the rest. Yeah, so, and all of that is on the resources page, but I cannot click on it because I don't have internet connection at the moment. But yeah, if you visit it, then they have an instruction manual for people who are very new to the system. So this is my Ableton project for this fluorosonic installation that I did that I'll show you. So something to note is there's a lot of chopping here. So basically, so my approach to spatializing for the most part, when I'm doing fixed sound installation work, I'm not moving anything around live, is just to like be very meticulous and just like assign exactly where I want the sound to be in each speaker. There's another sound artist who does this, Michael Schumacher, if anyone's familiar with him. Yeah, and I just think it's a good way to, it not only simplifies the process for me, but I feel like it makes it really clear where the sound is coming from if it's only come from one speaker. I mean, there's a number of ways to do that, but I just prefer it. Yeah, so, okay, cool. So let me go ahead and play this piece. The title of this is My Ideal is Windy. The whole thing is about 20 minutes, so I'll just play an excerpt. But yeah, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about being in Chicago and my family history as it relates to that. My parents met in Chicago, so it's kind of a personal piece for me. And yeah, I was thinking about what's called spatial drama. I'm pretty sure that's an accepted term because someone else said that to me. I didn't make it up. Maybe the person who said it made it up, but yeah, to me that's basically just like thinking about multi-channel system as an opportunity to like create, like intentionally have sounds in dialogue with each other based on where they are in the room. So yeah, so I'll play the piece now. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so I feel like that gives you a good impression of like my work, but also what the CLEAT system sounds like. I feel like the speakers are like, even though I chopped it up pretty rough, like there's no like blending at all between like the different, when it's bouncing around. I feel like it sounds pretty, I just feel like the system is like pretty forgiving in comparison to other systems that I've used, which I appreciate. Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, just like this installation, I would say is pretty simple in its composition. It's just 2 lines going at the same time. Yeah, so I feel like, yeah, even if like, say you're like improvising or playing an instrument, like I imagine a lot of you do, because a lot of you brought instruments, and thank you for bringing instruments. It'll be fun after this. Yeah, I feel like you don't need so many layers in order to get a composition that sounds, yeah, that is like, sounds, I don't know, compelling, I guess. Yeah, so, yeah, so this is, yeah, a pretty straightforward way of like how I personally would approach this system. I think like if you have like a more maximalist style, that also is appropriate, but my style just happens to be more minimal, I would say. Yeah, and yeah, and yeah, another strong impulse for me as to like why multi-channel installation is interesting for me is because I feel like within multi-channel systems, can be a lot of DIY spirit, something historical that is sort of influential to me when thinking about multi-channel sound work is this system called the Acousmonium, which was developed in France by this research institute called GRM. And basically, it's just a bunch of random speakers compiled together, and that each speaker has a different sound to it, and that's part of it. And so that's certainly also possible to do on a system like this in a number of ways. But yeah, that's just kind of like something I personally appreciate. And yeah, but maybe we could talk about different kinds of multi-channel setups later. And yeah, so maybe now I'll just talk about my approach to improvising on the system. I'm gonna turn this off. Maybe, I think it'll be like, or maybe I'll just leave it on. But for the most part, I feel like it'll be pretty obvious what I'm doing, because you'll see it on the screen. So again, I have 2 inputs, my bass, and then I have a vocal input too.
Okay. So how I have it set up right now in my, sorry, there's a little bit of latency, but yeah, so how I have it set up in this Ableton set is I have 3 channels, and normally when I am using Ableton in this way, I like to toggle back and forth between different speakers. it's pretty simple, but I find it to be pretty effective. Yeah, so if you're a beginner, just sending it to a different speaker, I think, can be pretty compelling. Yeah.
And next I'm going to introduce a max patch that might look familiar to Stefan because it's from the starter max patches that are on the CLEAT website. Yeah, and so I'll use that to do stuff with my bass. So the CLEAT wandering patch is just this one, and when you open it up like this, it'll have it so this is like basically the audio input in Max, and right now it's set so that it'll play back an audio file if you hit open, like this. You can put an audio file in there, but we don't want that. We want input. Sorry if this is old info for anyone who uses Max regularly, but yeah, so then you just put in what's called Easy Zack. And then I want to put my bass in, so my bass is in input 1, so I put it on the left inlet. Moving around the room a little bit. Cool. Sorry, I'm using the wrong microphone. But instead of putting my bass in it, we can put my voice into this too. So now it's going in Ableton and in Max. I wouldn't recommend using Max and Ableton at the same time unless it's like pretty simple like this. I'm not using any plugins, so it's generally, it's gonna be okay, but yeah, if you're using anything like too difficult, I would recommend at least like shutting your computer down before performance and booting it, just so it doesn't like start acting funny in the middle of the things. Yeah.
Okay, so now we have my voice and the bass moving around at the same time. And yeah, so pretty simple, but I think it's pretty cool. And also a cool thing about this Max Patch 2 is you can hit this X. So now the speakers are fixed and have it moving again. So
my MIDI keyboard is broken at the moment, unfortunately, but I have this thing. Yeah, and so like you can like connect it to any DAW. Sorry if this is old information also, but yeah, it's pretty simple to like connect to any kind of DAW, and so instead of having to manually click something that's in here, I can just hit it with my foot, and it's a bit more streamlined. So if you're interested, yeah, I would definitely recommend this MIDI keyboard specifically. Okay. Cool. Cool. And let's look at another Max Patch. We don't need to see that. So this patch is like a patch I used recently for a performance at UC Berkeley at this thing called CNMAT. Yeah, CNMAT. I forget the acronym, but yeah, it's a 16-channel system also, but it's a ring, so different configuration. Yeah, so this is a patch that I used for that performance, and it's meant to be a quad panner, so moves things around smoothly between 4 speakers. But I did something to it, and it broke it, and it like kind of just glitches out. Yeah, so I'll demonstrate that to you as like another way of approaching this kind of just another setup that that I like to use. You are going to find a lot of multi-channel things that are made for a different configuration system. Even if you're using a 16-channel system, maybe it's like 2 rings of 8, or maybe it's like, I don't know, something else. Or maybe it's like meant for like a ring of 8, or like a quad thing like this. feel like you can get a lot of interesting digital artifacts by using things wrong. Yeah, and so, yeah, that's personally something that I gravitate towards. Yeah, and so let's add the vocals. Yeah, so I'll just show, I have like one more patch to show. Yeah, and then we can talk a little bit more about like, or I would like to talk more about different systems, and yeah, and then we can have some questions, and then people can try. So this last patch is maybe not the most practical, but I think it's like interesting way to demonstrate maybe like adding things onto existing patches that you already use. So this one is like using pitch tracking to alter the rate of a sound moving around the room, basically. Yeah, so you need two inputs for this, but you can, as you can see here, that it doesn't have to be a live input. You can play a sound file, you can have some kind of noise. So yeah, maybe let's just have the source at the moment be a sound file, something nice sounding, just to, okay, so we have our rain stick sound here. Yeah, and so I'll demonstrate a little bit how, yeah, how we can use pitch tracking to change the rate of it moving around the room. stays in one spot, basically. So if you have one instrument, one input, for example, this might be like something that you're interested in. Yeah, because I think it can be very like, yeah, I just feel like it doesn't, like this sound that's playing right now is pretty subtle. So yeah, I think, yeah, it adds like a nice effect to, yeah, to just one instrument without it being too overwhelming. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's, yeah, so I think like that's like pretty, yeah, it's pretty basic introduction to using Macs with stuff at the same time, but yeah, I think like more simple stuff, I think is having something really straightforward is helpful. At least for me personally, it has to be like extremely easy during a performance. Otherwise, I'll just get like really like overwhelmed. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, there's like a lot of ways to add on to this, and there's more sample things on this CLEAT website under resources. And then, like I mentioned before, if you're more of an Ableton person, I would definitely recommend this set of Max for Live patches. Yeah, so they have yeah, random panners, kind of like the first Max patch that I showed where something is like going around automatically. Yeah, and it can be also helpful just for routing things. I use it a lot for sound installation work also. Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe we should just open it up for questions if anyone has a question. Yeah.
So if these are all like mono, right? Like each individual thing. So if you take something that's mixed for a stereo field, how will it
for the live streams?
Oh, sorry. If you take something that's mixed like just a standard stereo and you put it in, is it gonna just play like the same thing out of every speaker, or is there a way to get it to parse it out so that it's like still left, right, or like how does it interpret that information?
Huh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it, like you can use it either way, honestly. I mean, like just how we were doing it in Max here, I'll pull up a Max patch. Like one of the Max patches we were just using. Maybe not that one. Yeah, so like, let's get rid of this. Yeah, so if you're in stereo and you just want to have that one thing moving around, like you can just put both inputs into this gain bar, and then it'll just move around but if you want to have the two inputs move around individually, you can also do that too. You would just have this, instead of this going into this, you would have it go into like a whole nother one of these. Yeah, and I think like in Ableton too, you can have things in stereo also be in different parts of the room, but I've personally never done that just because I always have mono. But it shouldn't. I feel like you can totally do that.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question because you said some of it, there's patches now for Max for Live. Is the composition that you played for us, was that going to the system through Max for Live, or was that also going through Max separately as well?
This one? This composition? Or?
It kind of, yeah, I mean, I was just curious if you could work just with Max for Live talking to the system, or if you have to have Max running separately as well with Ableton.
No, for Max for Live patches, it's just in Ableton. Yeah, but I mean, you don't have to use both, but I guess I just prefer to, but generally I feel like, actually, you know what, I feel like I've either used Ableton or either used Max for the most part. But yeah, I mean, in this thing that I played here, it was just Ableton, and I don't even think I was using any Max for Live patches either. It was just like routed directly into each speaker. Yeah, so it's pretty simple. Hmm?
I have a question. So these two ways of using this sound system are very different. You might think of the Ableton way as like a fixed media approach, and the other way is like more of it's like an improvisatory approach. Can you talk about how you decide to use one or another, or how the two manifest different aspects of your practice?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like a lot of my practice is about self-expression, and I feel like that's pretty obvious with improvisation, I would say, but like with my sound installation work, I do feel like it is kind of like an externalization of like certain feelings. So I feel like when I'm going for making fixed work, I'm really going for like a certain feeling. It's more about like creating like a particular kind of emotional space than anything else. So I feel like maybe that's the overlap between the two. But it is a lot of like the material from the sound installation work that I do is just me improvising, and then I'll quantize it or I'll like put more effects on it. So yeah, I feel like the sound installation work comes out of the improv stuff, but yeah, so thanks. Amazing. Well,
I have a question for this. Okay, thank you. Sorry. For this composition, for the individual pieces, did you put those in there, you know, where you wanted them precisely, or did you play that out, or map it with like MIDI or something?
No, I just chopped it up. Yeah, and the way I chopped it up was totally visual too. Like I didn't really listen to it. I was just like looking to make sure like, oh, this one has like chops. This one hasn't had a chop in a little. Yeah, and I feel like that's just kind of like how I prefer it. I've done like some other, I did like a project 2 summers ago in New York as artist in residence at this space called Living Gallery. And I just set up like a crude acousmonium-esque like 8-channel system of like 8 random speakers. And I arranged a composition of my own and like 3 other musicians, not necessarily sound artists. Yeah, and yeah, for that, I just chopped it up visually. And I feel like it just makes the most sense and keeps everything pretty balanced, even though you're not. I mean, obviously you want to listen to it and confirm, but I feel like, yeah, that's just how I prefer to do it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, thanks for sharing your work. What's your pedal setup and what's your favorite effects chain you use on sound?
Oh, yeah, so it's all like basically different kinds of delay, question mark? The first pedal I have is like a granular delay from Red Panda called Particle, and then I have a looper, and then I have a freeze pedal, and then I have a pedal called the Mini Glitch from this like really small maker called King of Gear, which is kind of difficult to get your hands on, but it's based off a Max Patch that Johnny Greenwood used on some Radiohead albums, which would be my favorite one, but yeah, I feel like any kind of delay. I love Pamela Z, if anyone knows Pamela Z. She uses a lot of delay, so yeah, I'd say like that's like my main inspiration point just for effects. But yeah, I really love this Red Panda particle too, and it's helpful. Yeah, I feel like all of them are good for just like sustaining things. Yeah, thanks.
I'm not sure how to say this. Would it be fair to say that, like, in the first piece you played, there's less, does it matter less the specific location of each speaker? And, like, it seems significant that they're separated in space, but does it matter that that one is over there versus the panning seems like very much like there's a location, like, there's a spatial element to it, not just like a narrative element.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, like, by narrative, do you mean like compositional?
Structural, yes.
Oh, structural?
Yes.
Yeah, totally, yeah. Yeah, it definitely, yeah, is like, yeah, that definitely is intentional, and I'm glad that came through with this, because that was something I was specifically going for. So yeah, basically, like, there are 3 sections of the piece, and there are 2, like I said before, there are 2 stems, and one stem is fixed while the other one is moving around. And so each section is fixed in a different position of the room. Yeah, but then the ones that are moving around are kind of going to the same speakers. Yeah, and I think like, yeah, it's, I feel like the sparseness also like is important to me because it can kind of help you feel the room more if there's more silence. But yeah, thank you. Hopefully that answered your question.
There wasn't really a question, but
okay.
It's interesting to hear you talk about it anyway.
Yeah.
Is it time to move into the part of the evening where we jam into the system?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so maybe like if you brought an instrument and wanna try spatializing, maybe come up first and then we can let people plug their laptops in. But yeah, thanks again everyone for coming, and feel free if you have any more questions to come to me afterwards or approach me via email or something, which is on my website, which is just my name. But yeah, again, thank you everyone for coming. And if you're interested, like Stefan said, there are more of these workshops throughout the month. So yeah, feel free to come back. But yeah, thanks.